There's no law requiring a doctor to cure you when there's a cure available. You assume, because you're innocent, that he wants to cure you. Let's say you have diabetes, and I can cure you in 2 to 14 days of diabetes. The doctor makes $300 from a office call. Actually, the pharmacist will make more money from the medications, right? But if he can treat you for 25 years rather than cure you in 3 weeks, he makes $750,000. So it's not unethical, it's not unlawful for him to treat you for 25 years. And so which way is he going to go? $750,000 or $300,000? And that's the problem with human medicine, is insurance. It's the worst possible thing that can happen to human medicine, because it made the doctors figure out how to get the insurance. When they treat you, they ameliorate or dampen down symptoms. They do not cure the disease. Every drug, with the exception of antibiotics, which can kill, let's say you have a strep throat, there's antibiotics that can cure strep throat. If you have syphilis, penicillin will cure syphilis. But it's always the infectious disease with an antibiotic that we can cure. There's 250,000 pharmaceuticals that are prescription drugs in the PDR, the physician's desk reference, that they have access to, with the exception of antibiotics, which are about 500. So 249,500 are prescription drugs, non-antibiotic, only treat symptoms. There's not a single pharmaceutical other than antibiotics that cures the disease. They all treat symptoms. When does a doctor make the most money? When you're sick or when you're well? When you're sick. When does the pharmaceutical industry make more money? When you're sick or when you're well? Now, the medical system has legislated themselves into a protected monopoly. Everybody but medical doctors are quacks. Everybody knows that because medical doctors tell you so. They've legislated themselves into a protected monopoly. They have no oversight by any agency. They self-police, and they have unlimited money through government and private insurance. Bam! You're dead. Now, we spend more money for health care than all the other nations in the world combined. There's 204 nations registered in the United Nations. Of those 204 nations, we spend more money for health care than all the rest. Not more than any nation, more than all nations. And what do we get for it? We rank 92nd in healthfulness in the world. There's 91 other nations whose peoples are healthier than us. We rank 60th in longevity. There's 59 other nations whose peoples live longer than us. And God forgive us, we rank 41st when it comes to live births and first-month survivability of babies, and that doesn't even count the abortion piece. Time magazine, December 2008, cover article, The Sorry State of American Health. Despite technological advances in medicine, Americans are less healthy than we used to be, and the next generation, our kids are going to be worse off. How many of you have heard that our kids are not going to live as long as the adults? Okay, that's 2/3 of you. What they're saying here is statistically, 3/4 of you in this room will be standing at a gravesite burying your children, unless we change what we're doing. Petitions to the doctors, petitions to the government aren't going to change anything. That's not going to change anything. There's only one way to change the system, and that is to not use it. Cut off their cash flow, suddenly now they become real humble. But you have to make that decision. Well, that takes responsibility on your part, and I'm here to teach you the things you can do for yourself to avoid using them unnecessarily. That make sense? So that's where we're going. Just so you don't think I made that up, in ranking of newborn deaths, again, we're 41st in the world when it comes to live births and first month survivability of babies. And they say it's a shame. It's not a shame, it's an absolute crime. And most OBGYNs and most pediatricians should go to jail for it. I don't know if you've ever heard of the scientific journal called Food Chemistry. It looks at the nutritional value of food grown here in the United States and food imported in the United States. Also looks for pollution, so I'm kind of familiar with that one. And in the April issue of this year, April 2012, there was a big article in there that looked at 8 very well-known, trusted names in baby foods, Gerber's, Similac, Enfamil, these kind of things. And what they said was that commercially available baby foods contain less than 20% of the recommended levels of many vitamins and minerals, and less than 20%. This is why we have autism and ADD and ADHD. It has nothing to do with vaccinations, nothing. I've looked at the batch numbers and the ingredients, and manufacturers, they send the same batch numbers and the same ingredients all over the world. And 95% of all autism occurs here in the United States. So it can't be the vaccinations because it is used everywhere else. So what is it? It's malnutrition of the brain. You cannot make a good brain on Fruity Pebbles and apple juice. Most kids who have autism and ADD and ADHD are normal until they go from formula to solid food. What's their solid food? Pop-Tarts and Welch's grape juice, Sunny Delight, and Eggos with syrup. All carbohydrates, carbohydrates, carbohydrates. There's no fats, there's no proteins, there's no vitamins, there's no minerals, and you get what you get. You can't make a brain on carbohydrates only. So here's where pediatricians should go to jail. AARP, their monthly bulletin, American Association of Retired People. I'm glad to see so many young people in here because we got to start young, right? We can't wait till people, my doctor says I have 3 seconds to live. Can you save me with vitamins? Yeah. Okay. You'd be amazed at how many people I get like that. Oh, I heard your tape 20 years ago. I didn't do anything and now I got 2 seconds to live. Can you help me? Okay. Okay, so the AARP bulletin, March of this year, the worst place to be in America when you're sick is an American hospital. I took 2 pieces out of the body of the article, and one of which is the number of American patients who die each year from American hospital errors is equal to 4 jumbo jets crashing each week. That's about 1,200 to 1,500 people per week. How many of you would fly commercial airlines if you knew they killed 1,200 to 1,500 passengers every week? Nobody would fly! I must see my doctor. I must see my doctor. And then also, in the same issue, each U.S. surgeon operates on the wrong person, wrong body part as often as 40 times a week. Boy, that brought silence to the room. That's because they're usually intoxicated on alcohol, street drugs, or prescription drugs, and that comes from a 6-year-ago study by Lucien Lepay, who's the head of the Department of Public Health at Harvard Medical School, and he went around and blindly took blood samples from doctors. He just showed up and took blood samples from them, and he ran them, and 52% are intoxicated during their working day on something. That's why they make so many mistakes. It's published stuff from Harvard Medical School. Newsweek magazine cover article. Why is that guy terrified? Well, he's not even anesthetized, and those surgeons are ready to stick him with their scalpels, and that's because if they even touch him with their scalpels before he undergoes anesthesia, they've started their procedure. And if he dies during the induction of anesthesia, which happens quite frequently because they don't turn on the oxygen, and because they're drunk, and he dies, let's say, during the induction of anesthesia, they can run off and play golf for 4 hours and still get paid their $100,000. So they want to start the procedure, right? Now, the one word that will save your life in a hospital is a 2-letter word that every 2-year-old knows. No! Whatever they tell you, you're going to respond by saying no. Now, what is that guy afraid of? I mean, this is a universal fear posture, right? It doesn't matter what language you speak. If you're doing this, you're afraid of something. Now, let's say you're in the hospital, you have 4th-stage cancer. It's gone to the regional lymph nodes, maybe gone from your colon to your lungs, you're in real trouble. They say, look, we've given you 4 rounds of chemotherapy, nothing seems to be working, but we have this new experimental drug coming out in a couple of weeks, and we want to try it on you. Your response should be, no! Because they know that it's not going to work on you. 97% of the time, chemotherapy doesn't work for cancer. That's published in the Journal of Oncology about 3 years ago. 97% of the time, chemotherapy is useless. But they got to give you something. It'll shrink the tumor a little bit, but you still die. Okay, now, so this experimental drug is going to be the same way. It's going to shrink the tumor a little bit, but you still die. And so what they're asking you to do is to let them use you as a guinea pig to see if just the injection of the drug kills you. Because they have to have 100 patients who will be injected with the drug, and they have to have less than 3 die from the drug itself before they prove it. So they're looking for the village idiot to say, okay, see if I'm the one you're going to kill. So what is he afraid of? Well, there's 7 physicians on the facing page, and I want you to look at their body language and their faces to see if they're coming to him as good Samaritans. They remind me of the Walking Dead series on TV. The doctors of the Walking Dead. And the reason why they're coming for him is he is the only one in the hospital with money. Everybody else is a Medicare patient. They don't have any money. They'll play hockey out there. They'll knock each other down because they want to be the one to get to him to get the money. These are not uncommon things. Usually Reader's Digest is a very chummy magazine with really great stories. You know, the dog drags a kid out of the fire in the house, and the 2-year-old calls 911 and saves grandma from a heart attack. But look at this cover article in 2007, June of 2007. Fatal hospital mistakes. Now, how common is that? Well, in 1999, I made one of my, I don't know, 30 or 36 CDs I have out there. And I have to admit, I used the title of a movie. How many of you have heard of the Ray Milland movie? Some of you are old enough to remember that old Ray Milland movie, Dial M for Murder. Dial M for, it's a great movie. And then it was remade here about 10 years ago or 15 years ago with Michael Douglas. It was called The Perfect Murder. The same storyline, just new technology and stuff to make it modern. But it was the same storyline. All I did was change it by one letter. Instead of saying Dial M for Murder, I said Dial MD for Murder. The doctors didn't like that. They just like went crazy. And in this CD, I read this stuff from this newspaper article. Each year in America, VA medical doctors make 3,000 mistakes, which cost the patient there a limb or an eye, or to stay in the hospital for another 6 months because of infections or whatever. And of those 3,000 mistakes that are inflicted on VA patients every year by VA doctors, the VA doctors kill 700 veterans that have escaped death at the hands of the enemy. So they come home to be treated by our doctors kill them. They come home to be treated by our doctors at the VA hospital, and each year the VA doctors kill 700 of our veterans that went out there to protect us. And the doctors get a walk. They never go to jail because they have a protected monopoly. They can kill, maim, rape, and burn with impunity, and they're untouchable. This came out. It was a full-page story in the USA Today in February 2007. I had to chop it up a little bit to get it in this 8.5 by 11. Look at the title here, Patient, Protect Thyself. Now the data that I'm going to share with you came from the Journal of the American Medical Association, very, very well-respected journal. Whether you agree with them or not, they are very well-respected. And then the Center for Disease Control, which is a federal agency in Atlanta, Georgia, that looks at this stuff. And what the article said was, each year in America, medical doctors kill, injure, and infect 15 million of their customers at their workplace. They get a walk. They don't even get an OSHA ticket. Each year in America, medical doctors kill, injure, and infect 15 million of their customers at their workplace. 5.8 million in hospitals and 9.2 million in private offices and clinics. How many of you would fly commercial airlines if you knew that they killed, injured, and infected 15 million passengers every year? Nobody would fly. This is one of my favorites. Each year in America, medical doctors inflict 2 million infections on hospital patients. Of those 2 million infections, 90,000 die. They kill 90,000 people each year just from infections that they inflict on the patient. Now, how can that happen? Well, that's because they wear the same white coat, the same pantyhose, the same trousers, the same shoes from room to room to room, dragging pee, poop, blood, pus, snot, gunk, viruses, bacteria, everything you can think of. By contrast, in a pig barn, by federal law, you're required to disinfect your boots when you go from one pig pen to the next because you want to be dragging swine flu with you. We treat pigs better than we do people. We treat pigs in a barn better than we do people in a hospital. Now, I want you to think about this. If Iran were to ship over one of their intercontinental ballistic missiles, which they're always testing, with a WMD, a weapon of mass destruction, that was a biological weapon, a bioweapon with viruses and bacteria in it, that would kill 90,000 people. Let's say they lobbed that thing right into Minneapolis and killed 90,000 people in a couple of weeks or a month. What we do? Well, we declare war. We just go over there and flatten that country into rubble, kill a lot of people. You know, well, please say you're sorry. No, probably not. Would we sue them and say, we want some retribution. We want $1 million per person for every one you kill? Probably not. We declare war and we go kill them all. Well, here you have doctors that kill 90,000 every year, just simply because they don't wash their hands after they go potty. Yummy, yummy. Now, how can I say that? Well, this came out in August, about almost exactly 2 months ago. Tomorrow will be 2 months ago. One bacteria causes 30,000 deaths in hospitals every year. That's 1/3 of the 90,000, right? There's one bacteria, C. diff, it's Clostridium differentians, which is only found in human poop. It's a human poop bacteria, it's a human feces bacteria. It comes only from doctors and nurses not washing their hands patient to patient to patient. To show you how concerned they are about it, doctors, in 1993, there were 85,700 cases of C. diff infections in hospitals reported, and by 2010, it went up 400% to 346,800. Is it getting better or worse? Well, the numbers work. It's getting worse. So when do you say is enough enough? When do you get pissed off enough to say enough is enough? We're not going to use you guys anymore. Don't you think? Remember when that Toyota, there was 60 people got killed. 60 people got killed in was it 4 years or 5 years from Toyota's accelerator problem? 12 people a year. I mean, it was a big hoo-ha. Oh, oh! I mean, everybody's suing for billions of dollars, front page stories. It was a mess. Here we have one trade in their workplace. They kill 90,000 from infections every year because they don't wash their hands after they go potty. Nobody cares. That's because they have a protected monopoly. Are you beginning to get a picture here? Now, this is another one of my favorites because I got some very famous examples to show you. Hospital care fatal for some patients. Well, that's kind of fatal, you know, vanilla. Results of Medicare study alarming. Well, that's alarming. Well, the study was done by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Office of Inspector General. Office of Inspector General. Well, that's the auditor for Medicare. What they said was each month in America, medical doctors kill 15,000 Medicare patients with non-invasive procedures. Each month, medical doctors kill 15,000 Medicare patients from non-invasive procedures. How many of you would fly commercial airlines if you knew they killed 15,000 seniors a month? Especially if you're a senior. I ain't going on that plane, man, I'm driving. Now, doctors have become pre-grave robbers. I got a couple more of these, then you'll understand where doctors are coming from, then I'll tell you what to do for it, okay? But I got a few more to show you. A couple more categories here. Medicare costs for hospice is up 70% every year. 70%, 70%, 70%. How much does it cost to stick your finger in somebody's carotid artery to see if they're dead? You don't need a lot of technology there, right? And so why would hospice go up 70% every year? Well, here's why. Doctors become pre-grave robbers. Let's say you're in a hospice. Let's say it's Grandma Daisy. Grandma Daisy's in a hospice. And she's got stage 4 colon cancer has gone to her brain. She's in a coma. She's being fed IV, and the doctor calls for a conference, the immediate family. They're at the hospice, and they're all sitting there, tears coming down, looking at Grandma Daisy there. She's kind of gonzo. She's in a coma because of this cancer's gone from her colon to her brain. The doctor's saying, look, we can pull the plug. She'll be dead in 3 days. But I recommend we kind of do what we can to keep her going here, and I want you to sign a paper allowing us to resuscitate her if she has cardiac arrest, because there's this new drug coming along, and it might just help her. Of course, the instinct is to want to grasp onto that last straw, right? And, yeah, well, let's go for it. You know, we got insurance, it'll pay for it. And so everybody, especially, invariably, it's the biggest guy in the family. You know, the grandson who's 7 foot tall, tight end, you know, weighs 300 pounds and can kill you with a look, right? And he looks at the doctor and says, whatever Grandma Daisy needs, she gets, right? And the doctor, oh, yes, sir. Grandma Daisy was the best. She ironed our underwear. She made all our food from scratch, nothing ever canned or frozen. She was the best. Whatever Grandma Daisy needs, she gets. And as he's walking out the door, whatever Grandma Daisy, don't forget, she gets the best. Yeah, oh, yes, sir. Well, as soon as everybody signs a paper and they've left the room, this doctor, this hospice doctor, is on the internet calling all his golf buddies. I checked out Grandma Daisy here, and she's got $300,000 left in all her accounts between Medicare, her private insurance, and everything, and her supplements. She's got $300,000. They're there in a heartbeat. They give her a hysterectomy, double mastectomy. They'll do a double hip replacement, double knee replacement, cataract surgeries. If she has one tooth, they'll yank that, do an upper and lower dentures, and then they put implants in her middle ear because she was deaf. And then they pull the plug, say, oh, and they call them, say, oh, Grandma Daisy had a turn for the worse and she died, but only after they get the money. So what I want you to do is have hospice at home. Medicare will pay for hospice at home. Everybody comes there that needs to come there and do whatever's necessary, give her better thing, but you have some control here. You let her have her dog in her bed with her. You let the grandkids sleep with her if they want. She can have a gallon of ice cream every night if she wants. You can't give Grandma Daisy ice cream in a hospice. She's dying. You can't let the grandkids come in. She's in intensive care. You can't let grandkids come in to give Grandma Daisy a hug. Do you see the difference here? Why do you want the people you love dying by themselves when the nurses are all chasing the doctors around in the library at night? After all, that's where the plush chairs are. Just so you know that I'm not making this stuff up, Dr. Repeat Surgery Probe gives up license. Now this guy he had 10 times the number of repeat surgeries on people than any other doctor in the state of Oregon. And it was only because he had 40 lawsuits against him that the organization did something about it. This came out September 7th of this year. U.S. healthcare wastes $750 billion. That's $750 billion. That's $750 billion. Every year, the medical system wastes $750 billion a year. That's your tax money. Now, what was the waste for? Unneeded care in hospice. I never say anything I can't back up. This is going to make you feel warm and fuzzy. Each of you owes the Chinese government $534,000, which totals $62 trillion. Now, why is that? Well, that's because for the last 30 years, each one of your elected officials in Washington, regardless of party, independents, libertarians, Democrats, Republicans, they all did it. What they did was they took all your money from your Social Security funds, your Medicare and your Medicaid funds, and gave it over to the highway departments, which you see all this highway work going on here. That's your Social Security money. That's your Social Security money, okay? And this was so they could come back and say, I brought home the bacon last year. I got 100 new jobs in this district, and I want you to re-elect me. Oh yeah, we got 100 new jobs, got to re-elect you. Well, when the first baby boomers came along, 80 million of them, the first wave about 4 years ago came along. Okay, we're here for our Social Security. Everybody's looking at each other in Washington. We don't have any money. They're here for their money. We don't have any money. So, well, you got to wait 6 months. Next year, you got to wait another 6 months. And so now I think you got to be 70 before you get your first payment in Social Security. It used to be 65, right? You got to keep waiting and waiting and waiting. And that's why, because there's no money there. So they run to the Chinese. We need money. Okay, we'll give you the $62 trillion. We want some security here. So what security did they have to give for $62 trillion? It wasn't a signature in their name. What it was all the weekly revenues from federal lands. Oil leases, we're talking about timber permits, grazing permits, all of the tolls from the federal toll roads. Weekly bypasses all the American banks and goes straight to China. Not even keeping up with the interest, because this is a year old. It's now 70 trillion. This is outside that 16 trillion that's, you know, we're behind on our budget this year. We're behind on our budget, 16 trillion. That doesn't count this. I knew that would make you feel warm and fuzzy. Now, doctors are always at the bottom of it. This came out in 1997. A 1997 study by the Health Insurance Association of America found that 75% of insurance fraud, which is a federal crime, is committed by providers, which is a code word for doctors. You do that, you go to jail. Doctors do it, they get a walk.